Yes, hello. You're watching the Sunday Politics for Yorkshire, Lincolnshire and the North Midlands. Coming up before 12 o'clock. We'll be asking whether your money should subsidise the offshore wind industry, with evidence of coalition tension over the cost of green energy. Also, we'll be asking whether the current Sunday trading laws are outdated in our 24-hour consumer society. Our guests today are David Ward, the Liberal Democrat MP for Bradford East, Craig Whitaker, Conservative MP for Calder Valley, and in our Hull studio is Carl Turner, the Labour MP for Hull East. David Ward, if I can start with you, the party conference season is underway this weekend, the Lib Dems gathering down on the south coast. I mean, your party's poll ratings are still pretty dismal. What's going to be the mood of the Yorkshire delegates down there?
Well, I think the mood is going to be one of grim determination to battle on. We are halfway through or so through the Parliament, and we've done many of the things which were necessary but really quite unpalatable. And it's really about delivery now. It's about implementation of many of the things, and hopefully then things will begin to tame. But it will all, at the end of the day, it will all depend on the economy, I believe.
Craig Whitaker, do you think the gap between the two coalition parties is wider than ever?
No, I don't think it is. I think, as David said, the task has been incredibly huge. I don't think any government in recent modern history have had to deal with what this coalition government's had to deal with. So I think with the odd tension there and about, I think the two parties will work together quite closely to make sure that the programme is delivered and begins to show signs of delivery, as David says.
Carl Turner, can you afford to be nasty to the Lib Dems? I mean, you might need them if you're going to form the next government.
Well, one never knows, Tim. I suppose that's a fair argument. Look, I think the truth is the coalition is in complete disarray, actually. You see it in Parliament. They're arguing between themselves, not just outside of the chamber, but inside of the chamber. They came into government, formed a coalition on the basis that they're going to work together for the good of the country. Clearly, that's not happening. The economy is failing, and, you know, quite frankly, they're in disarray.
Well, it's going to be an interesting party conference season. We'll talk more in a moment, but first I want to look at energy, because we're told there's a jobs bonanza blowing in from the North Sea. Engineering companies and manufacturers are queuing up to build and assemble a new generation of wind turbines to be situated off the east coast. However, to pay for them, it'll mean big public subsidies, which would add an estimated £25 onto every household electricity bill. And many industry figures fear the government isn't fully committed to the green energy revolution. Len Tingle has been investigating.
For centuries, the River Humber has brought waves of industry and jobs to its banks. That could be about to happen again here near Immingham, a site with water on one side and fast access to rail and road on the other. It also happens to be the biggest single piece of industrial development land in the country with a deep water frontage. That's the River Humber over there. The idea is that factories will be built on this land. They'll assemble those giant wind turbines. They'll be put straight onto ships to be installed out there in the North Sea. Everything's ready to go. There's just one thing missing, and that's confidence.
The developers of the wind farm need to know exactly what they're going to get once they provide the infrastructure and start generating the electricity and kicking it back into the grid.
Well, why do you think the government's being so slow in being able to say to the industry, this is what sort of level of return you're going to get?
I think that's a question for the policymakers.
Welcome to the inaugural Rexpo conference and exhibition.
80 miles inland, and business leaders gathered at this conference and exhibition in Sheffield this week would also like an answer to that question. They're ready to join a supply chain creating thousands of jobs. But without government agreement on subsidising the electricity eventually created, believe it's in jeopardy. How quickly have the government got to, as far as you're concerned, get their act together, put their full backing behind this industry before all these plans fall apart?
Yesterday, I think I would say, but you know, we've seen from our presentation today from the likes of Able Marine Energy Park, you know, these companies have invested £50 million already. There's been a big investment in Greenport Hull already.
They've been investing here too. This Rotherham manufacturer is already making huge steel access ladders for the wind turbines. Customers, so far, mostly in Germany. But they need those orders from the new UK wind farms off the Humber.
The work that we are winning already, we've created something in the region of 50 extra jobs. When the market starts to take off, how the projections are in the future, then, you know, that figure could be 2, 3, 4, 5 times as many jobs, long-term jobs for MTL and Sheffield.
The government's recent reshuffle has dented the fledgling industry's confidence. A new energy minister walked through the doors of Number 10 and this week announced yet more consultations before deciding how he will mix nuclear, gas and wind power.
We don't want to subsidise any one technology unacceptably. And so we call for evidence that both the proponents of wind power and the opponents will have their chance to come forward and give evidence. It's an open call. But renewables are very much part of our strategy. There's no doubt about that.
I'm talking about
in the right places. Wind power in the right places with community engagement and community benefit can work. There's no doubt about that.
We have ministers in one department being against wind, and it looks like now with John Hayes we have a minister within the Department of Energy and Climate Change who also, I have to say, is rather equivocal, to say the least, about the opportunities that wind provide. And this is really bad news.
That leaves business stuck in the middle, investing and gearing up for an offshore industry that could be blown away before it's even started.
Craig Whitaker, you were one of more than 100 Tory MPs who signed a letter to the Prime Minister calling for a cut in subsidies to onshore wind farms. What about offshore wind? Isn't this something the government should be doing more to make sure those jobs come to our region?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's a real fine balance, but I think the cost currently, the subsidy to the taxpayers being asked to pay is far too high. And I think there are other ways with alternative energy that doesn't need as much subsidy that we can deliver the things that the government need to deliver. So I think it's a very fine line. I personally would like to see a much bigger reduction in subsidies to those that are onshore rather than offshore, but it's something the government need to listen to and take heed, because people, communities are up in arms about wind turbines being put up next to the properties. This morning in my surgeries I spoke to two ladies who were absolutely incandescent about a local farmer wanting to put up a wind turbine. It was all for them about the subsidies, and for me we need to get it right.
Is there a certain amount of frustration, David Ward, within the Liberal Democrat Party, to the Conservatives, many Tories, scepticism about wind power?
There is. I mean, look, we must not mess about on this one, Tim. This is Carl's obviously got a local interest in this, but actually this is of national interest to us, because it is not just about the green agenda, it is about our manufacturing base here. We are world leaders in this area, and we will lose that position unless we fully go for this absolutely full pelt. And as Caroline said quite rightly, it's bad news. If there was a Lib Dem leading on this, I think most people would accept it to be a greener agenda. And I am worried about John Hayes. Wonderful in his previous role, I must say, but he's in the wrong place for this, I believe.
Carl Turner, the offshore wind industry I know is going to provide a much needed boost to jobs in your constituency, but obviously it's going to cost money in the form of subsidies, and it's ordinary households who are going to have to pay. Do you think people who are struggling to make ends meet at the moment are willing to pay more on their energy bills?
I'm not sure about that, Tim, but what I'm absolutely sure about is the advantages to the economy, and I think that's the point the government seem to miss. David's absolutely right. We've got to get behind this. This potentially Greenport Hull will create many hundreds, many thousands of jobs in the economy. There's the renewables issue, but also the economic advantages to this going ahead. But we're getting mixed messages from government. The government's message, on the one hand, we've got people like Craig signing letters, an open letter, speaking against onshore wind, which is very different, I have to accept, from offshore wind, but that doesn't encourage the industry. Investors who are looking to invest hundreds of millions of pounds need confidence from government. We've got Ed Davey, the Liberal Democrat, who's bound to be, as we speak, telling his conference that he's going to be the greenest government ever. But actually, we need to see the reality of that. The government now need to walk the talk.
Mixed messages from the government?
No, I don't think so. I think it's about, if these investors and these people that want to build these factories are so confident, why do they need so much taxpayers' money to get on and do the job? If they're so confident in the product that they're delivering, then get on and do it. Don't rely on every man, woman and child in this country having to subsidise and pay the price for what they want to do.
Briefly, Carl Turner, is that a fair point? Why, if this is going to be such a boom industry, why aren't all the city boys paying for it?
Look, there's great advantages to the economy. There's absolutely no doubt about that. I'm not going to be having an argument about what the advantages to the economy. In Hull, we need 7,000 extra jobs just to be average as a city. We're desperate for this investment. Craig says there's not mixed messages. We've now got John Hayes as a minister who's a climate change denier. For goodness sake, it couldn't get any worse than that. We need confidence from government to the industry so we can get on with this.
This strikes really
and plough ahead.
At the heart. This strikes at the heart of whether we have an active industrial strategy at all. We cannot just sit back and let. This is not about supporting lame duck businesses anymore, as it maybe was in the past. This is world-leading technology which we need to be supporting.
Well, look, I'm sure we'll come back.
David is absolutely right on that point. This is, big industry. This is Siemens in my neck of the woods. Is absolutely right.
I'm sure we'll come back to this debate many more times in the future. We'll have to leave it there for now, though, because we're going to talk Sunday trading, and we're asking whether Sunday should remain our traditional day of rest or become a shopping free-for-all. Some business leaders across Yorkshire and Lincolnshire are calling for the current Sunday trading laws to be scrapped in a bid to boost the economy. Opening hours were extended during the Olympics and Paralympics, and many believe the restrictions should be lifted permanently. Over the past few weeks, shoppers in Lincoln have been taking advantage of longer opening hours on Sundays, all thanks to a temporary change in the law to coincide with the Olympics and Paralympics.
I tend to go shopping on a Sunday because it's more convenient for my life and it fits in better with working and children.
I enjoy shopping on a Sunday because can go to church, come out of church, can have a family get around and go shopping. And they have something to eat where the shops are open, especially like supermarkets and things like that.
The current Sunday trading laws allow the big high street stores, supermarkets and garden centres to open for a limited period of 6 hours. But is there any real appetite for a permanent change in the law to allow all-day Sunday shopping?
People are working all sorts of hours, and Sunday that's another opportunity to do their shopping. And yes, if there's an appetite to extend these hours, I'm sure the business would be there. Retailers have obviously got to look at every opportunity, and if there's an opportunity of taking money, then obviously that's something that they've got to look at. As business is tight, every opportunity has got to be looked at and validated.
In a recent survey, 45% of shoppers said they supported extended opening hours on a Sunday, while 16% opposed all Sunday shopping. But moves to extend Sunday trading hours on a permanent basis are opposed by church leaders, many MPs, and the shop workers' union Usdaw. And some retailers aren't convinced. Nick Brown runs 4 department stores in York, Helmsley, Beverley and Gainsborough.
I really passionately feel that 6 hours is enough on a Sunday. It is the special day. I would think society want to have a different feel to the day. We've got 6 days of full shopping. 6 hours on a Sunday is the right balance, and we'll certainly be pushing that they keep it that way.
The government is currently looking at the economic arguments of extended opening hours, but it seems opinion is divided over whether the tills should ring out for longer on a Sunday. Craig Whittaker, do we need all-day Sunday shopping?
No, absolutely not. I think actually we should scrap Sunday shopping. I'm an ex-retailer of 30 years experience, and I remember when Sunday trading laws came in, and for me, I think it was a huge step back for society. People don't get time anymore for family. And, you know, shop workers, when this first came in, they got loaded extra penalty rates for Sunday. They got an opt-out to not work on Sundays if they so wish. I was at a retailer this week that told me the new contracts that are coming out don't give the opt-out option for the workers. And not only that, the workers, because it's only a short working day, have to make up their hours during the week. So one of the days during the week becomes a longer day. I think it's a disaster. We should go back to not having Sunday trading at all.
Carl Turner, I mean, Labour are always complaining there's no growth strategy. I mean, this would keep people in the shops, wouldn't it, on an extra day? Would give people jobs. What's wrong with extended Sunday opening?
It would if there was evidence to support that. I don't think there is. If there's any economic evidence to suggest to me that there'd be an advantage in the economy, then I may be tempted to support it. But that's not the situation with this, Tim. It's absolutely not the position. Vince Cable said initially that this was not going to be a pilot for the real thing, for the full rollout of this. He's gone back on his word on that. I understand why people are annoyed about it. You know, people who work on a Sundays already don't want to have to be forced by their own financial positions to have to work extra hours. So I'm absolutely opposed to this idea and certainly won't support it.
David Ward, I mean, the internet's not closed on a Sunday, is it? I mean, won't this reverse the recent trend that's seen many of our town centres becoming, you know, ghost towns?
This is a throwback. You know, you get up in the morning, go get your Sunday papers, you have roast beef and Yorkshire pudding for dinner, you listen to the sound of Leather on Willow in the afternoon after you've listened to Family Favourites.
Sound like John Major now.
Come on, you know, the
basics.
world has just moved on now, and there is an issue to do with the protection of workers, and we all understand that. But the world is just, my Sunday is different. Yes, I meet the family. Yes, I go watch my son play football. We have the grandkids and we take them out. It is a different day because I choose to make it different for me. And it is up to people how they spend their Sunday. And if they want to shop, let them shop.
It's the Tories that seem to be leading on this. George Osborne, Eric Pickles, a number of cabinet ministers seem to be supporting this, but you're not.
Well, as you know, I don't agree with everything the government do. But no, on this particular issue, I've always been against Sunday trading. Not because I'm, you know, incredibly religious or anything like that, but for me, it is the one day in everybody's busy lives that people can choose, as David says, to have family life together. And I think that's incredibly important.
Right, well, let's get some more of the week's political news in our part of the world now. Nick Morris has our roundup in 60 seconds.
More Yorkshire soldiers killed in Afghanistan has reopened the debate on why our troops are still there.
We'll have no answer if any more of our people are sacrificed. I think it would actually be disrespectful to those who've paid the ultimate sacrifice to cut and run.
Renewed calls to save Yorkshire and Lincolnshire's only child heart surgical unit earmarked for closure.
MPs are behind us, councillors are behind us, and I think there's always room for compromise.
I'm sorry. And are Nick Clegg's Liberal Democrats heading for their conference in Brighton this morning with a song in their hearts, or will his now musically remixed apology over increased student tuition fees prove more popular than he is?
I'm sure there'll be some people who will never, for whom it'll never be enough.
When we're wrong, we hold our hands up, but when we're right, we hold our heads up too. You learn from your mistakes, and that's what we will do.
David Ward, have you downloaded the Nick Clegg apology track to your MP3 player?
It's fantastic. I don't know who did that, but to do it so quickly and to do it so well is absolutely fantastic. And I compliment whoever did it anyway. It's great.
Was he right to say sorry?
Well, you know, the proportion of people who vote Labour or Tory has been going down for the last 60 years. You're likely to get coalitions. What we have learned, but also the other parties learned, for God's sake, don't make pledges because you never know what's going to happen after the election.
So it wasn't wise from your point of view?
Oh, it was foolish.
Foolish. Carl Turner, I mean, I know it's easy to stick the knife into Nick Clegg, but all politicians have broken promises they've made at some stage or another, haven't they?
I don't think on the scale of Nick Clegg's broken promise, what he actually pledged to do was effectively vote against any increase whatsoever of tuition fees, and we've seen them treble. It's just, you know, sorry, what does it mean? You know, what I've said on Twitter, actually, Tim, is what the Deputy Prime Minister should have been apologising for is helping the Tories to privatise the NHS. 49% of the NHS is effectively going to be private as a result of the Lib Dems supporting the Tory MPs in Parliament. You know, that's what he should be saying sorry about.
But it's coalition politics, isn't it? I mean, you might have to play that game one of these days. You might have to swallow some of your principles.
Well, I'm on record, Tim, saying that I wouldn't be very happy at all getting into bed with the Lib Dems. I think the way they've treated their electorate, people who voted Lib Dem, in the 2.5 years that the coalition has been in existence, has been absolutely appalling. So what I'll be saying to my colleagues in the Labour Party, and indeed when given the opportunity to my leader, I'm not keen on the idea of being in coalition with the Lib Dems, full stop. But, you know, let's see what happens at the election. It might be a situation where we may have to talk to other political parties. It could never happen that we'd talk to the Tories, of course. But I'm not in favour of it, absolutely opposed to it. I think they've behaved dreadfully.
Well, what do you make of all this, Craig Whittaker? I mean, are we going to see more politicians start to say sorry now? We're going to see, you know, some sort of truth and reconciliation committee to correct the misdeeds of the past?
Well, I just wonder whether Carl and his party will ever apologise for the mess they've left the country in, and, you know, the mess the coalition have had to endure over the last few years.
Or indeed for introducing tuition fees when they said they wouldn't, and increasing tuition fees when they said they wouldn't.
That's very rich coming from Craig. We're in the first double-dip recession for 37 years. At the time of the last general election, this is the facts, Craig.
We've also
At the
got
time
the
of the
biggest debt
last
this country's ever
general
endured
election,
in its history as well.
the economy was growing. We're now in a double-dip recession. People in my constituency are losing the jobs and losing the homes. It's a result of a double-dip recession which was made in Downing Street. So I've got absolutely nothing to apologise on behalf of my colleagues who were in the previous government. Thank you very much.
So it doesn't matter, we've got a £1.6 trillion debt that, you know, not just our generation, but the rest of our children's generations are going to have to be paying off. But,
well,
of course, don't worry about that, Carl, because that's absolutely fine. It also doesn't matter that 2.5% of GDP came from actually government overspending. But, you know, that doesn't need, you know, you talk about Nick Clegg's apology and the size of what he did. That is nothing in comparison to what Brown and Blair did.
The deficit
so
is very,
let's get a bit real here.
Just as important to the Labour Party as to any other political party.
Well, then apologise for it.
And we would work very hard to reduce the deficit. But the reality of what's happening is that borrowing is actually going up, not coming down.
I don't think
so
the
let's
word
look at the reality.
I don't think the word sorry is going to be mentioned in this studio today. We must leave it there for now. Craig Whittaker, David Ward, Carl Turner, thank you all for your time today. And now let's go back to Andrew Neil in London.